This is Hidden Killers Live with Tony Brueski, Stacey Cole, and Todd Michaels.
When a public figure is murdered, the story doesn't end when a shot is fired. It fractures. And that space between confusion and confirmation, something else tends to take root. Within hours of Charlie Kirk's assassination, social media filled with silence and noise. Claims of a false flag, fake texts, deep state plots, AI-generated notes, even talk of multiple shooters. Everyone searching for a version of the truth that fit their worldview. But why do we do that? Why do conspiracy theories spread faster than facts? Especially when the evidence, the filings, and the forensics are sitting right there in front of us? We're going to dive into that. Former FBI Special Agent and Chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program, Robin Dreeke, joining us to dissect how conspiracies are born, why they resonate, and what makes them nearly impossible to kill. We're going to take a look at the psychology behind belief, why people cling to explanations that defy logic, and why asking questions, even uncomfortable ones, still matters. Because understanding conspiracy thinking isn't about silencing curiosity, it's about protecting it from manipulation, distortion, and the noise that drowns out truth. So, Robin, let's start here. When the public doesn't have answers, why do our brains rush to invent them? What psychological need is being met when people create order out of their own chaos, I guess?
You just said it right there. We as a species have an amazing ability to try to find patterns where patterns may or may not exist, because when we understand patterns and we see patterns, what's it do? It allows us to feel safe. And so that's one of the reasons why we do these things and have our own confirmation biases. And if we're trying to have a confirmation of there must be a pattern here, I will find the pattern, that's part of it. But there's lots of elements that go behind conspiracy theories, why they take root, how they take root, why some people believe them, don't fall into them. There's a lot to unpack on that one. And really thinking about the Charlie Kirk ones that have recently emerged, I think there's also a recent trend also that feeds into this more than maybe during the Martin Luther King assassination or any of them from decades ago, and that is people want to feel special. That is really another driver behind conspiracy theories, is they want to come up with these really original things that no one's thought of before, so the world will look at them. And then when you throw social media on there, a large reason why people will put out a conspiracy theory, one, they're filling the void of information with their thoughts and opinions. And if they make them so sensational, but a little bit of plausibility, where's the spotlight go? On them. Mm-hmm. And then echo chambers start and they try to build upon it. And if you don't have credible information countering it, it'll take root. And even, like you said, even in this case, there's tons and tons of credible information that was presented and gathered immediately. Because when we're looking at credibility of information, we also want to look at the tempo in which it's garnered, the way in which it's shared, because we're looking for congruency in lots of different areas. And in this case in particular, I was pretty shocked. So many conspiracy theories, as I researched before we came on today, I was like, there's conspiracy theories around Charlie Kirk? How could there be? And like, oh my God, there's a lot. It's befuddling.
There are a lot of very loud voices that are peddling them. And look, I'm not here to say it's like everyone should be asking questions. There's a lot of weird things in this story. I want to get that off the bat right away. But there's also reality and there's not. And that's where I wanted to have a conversation about this kind of as a 10,000 foot overview. And I think we'll start there. And then I want to go a little bit closer to identifying some of these claims that are being made by some very well-known people who were very close to Charlie Kirk, including Candace Owens, and things that are being said. And I'm not here in this piece. I just want everybody to know, this is not a political piece. This is not to say this is right, this is wrong, this person's telling the truth, this person is not. It's more so just what's going on, an observation of the actions that we're seeing around us and these viewpoints that are being expressed. What's happening? That's what we're trying to get to here. So before anybody's like, well, it's going to go this way, it's not. This is not pro, anti, any opinions of Charlie Kirk. It's just what's happening in our environment.
If I could,
now.
Tony, to really introduce a thought here. So here's my notes I take on everything before we do it. Right?
Oh, wow, yeah.
And I use this word all the time. And I know I've used it with you, and I use it everywhere in my life. And I want people to engage this word as you've laid this out for us. Let's engage the world of maybe. Because if you use the word maybe, it keeps your mind open, and it keeps the people around you open that you're open. And that dialogue going. And when you keep the dialogue going, you're flowing. And when you have curiosity flowing, you actually can get to truth and you can get to a deeper understanding. So I love the world of maybe, because every conspiracy theory, like when I was going through this and all the things at the 30,000 foot level and all right down to the granular level, I was like, maybe. And so when we're maybe, it means I'm going to take in more. I'm going to take in more. I'm going to keep learning. I'm going to keep educating. So yes, I'm with you. Let's go maybe.
Why? Let's just start here. Why do we find comfort in believing a hidden hand in so many things? I mean, that's an interesting thing. Why does control, even dark control, feel better than uncertainty? Because with some of these conspiracy theories, I mean, again, you have to look at this and go, that would be even darker than what this may appear to be if it goes this far. But and that's the interesting thing with conspiracy theories. It sometimes makes us feel like we're more in control. But in order to feel more in control, we have to believe more extreme things or far more hoops that would have to have been jumped through to make that possible than just what reality may be.
Yeah, it's kind of me jumping on this one, out in front, because again, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist in this area, but these things, again, in that area, like you said, it allows us to feel safe, because if we think we can understand that this wasn't some random nutter, but there's some grander thing going on, it also allows us to feel safe, because that kind of thing wouldn't be targeted at me. It's only targeted at notorious people or people with a big reputation. So again, that's part of that. And also, it allows us to feel part of a group and a collective of special people. Again, this I want to really zero in on this feeling of needing to feel special, because a lot of us want to feel special. We want to feel like our place in this planet at this particular time and universe is going to make a difference. But as one of the great books I've read also said, is the courage to be disliked, and part of the courage to be disliked is the courage to be average. We are all pretty damn average. I mean, just look at lifespan of humanity and just us individually. We're pretty average, and we try to make a mark. We are painting our own little mosaic in the world around us to make our mark there, and what a legacy we leave with the children and everything behind. But if we're believing in these unusual conspiracies, and we're in a small group that believes a particular conspiracy, think about it. If all of a sudden one day that conspiracy was proven true, I was part of that. Look at me. I'm special. I was one of the few people that was an advocate for that crazy theory or that right theory, whatever it is. Because it feeds our need to be the center of the universe.
Well, it gives you a moment of being in the spotlight when you feel helpless and you feel like a victim, that you can suddenly put yourself cast in the spotlight. And like you said, you might have this grand idea that sounds absurd, but what if it happens to be true? Then all of a sudden you're no longer this nobody that was never noticed by anybody, and now you're somebody. And I think we are living in a world where people are just dying to be seen. We've got influencers. We've got people who are constantly living in this reality show that is America. I don't know if it's going on so heavily in other countries, but I think people are just, I've got a podcast. I've got a podcast. Everybody's got something. We want to be seen and heard.
And part of that also is, adding to that, is that need to be special and smarter. Because if I'm smarter than you all, and look, I came up with this amazing theory of what had happened, it doesn't require a lot of heavy lifting. Because if you're just making some hand-picked confirmation biased observations because you came up with a conclusion that this was a conspiracy, it didn't happen the way everyone else is saying it happened, it must be a conspiracy. Now we're going to handpick and have our confirmation bias, and we're going to only see the data that supports the conclusion that we're looking for. That's called really, really bad science. And you can convince yourself, because you can then articulate those 5 points out of these 1,000 that confirm that conspiracy you had. What it should do, though, is spark some curiosity is like, I'm seeing a pattern of 5 things. Let me dive deeper, because maybe it's true, maybe it's not. What other areas can I look in to try to validate or invalidate these observations? Because every time I see or hear something, the first thing I do is I get damn curious. Tony, when you forwarded me that we're going to be talking about conspiracy theories and Charlie Kirk, what did I do? I do deep dives in all these different areas. And then I did research in the history of man. You know me, I'm always looking to history for patterns. Yeah. How often are conspiracy theories, and we also got to differentiate between, because I did this because I got curious. There's a difference between a pure conspiracy theory and a cover-up. Mm-hmm. And in case of Charlie Kirk, we're dealing in the area of a potential cover-up as well, because they're covering up true information and trying to mislead. So there's conspiracy theories, cover-ups. But basically in the history of an assassination attempt and it being a true cover-up conspiracy theory, there are examples. Like I said, assassinations are zero proof of those being effective for social justice warriors. But in this case, you get about 20%. So there's a maybe of 20% that says, yeah, there's a possibility here that is above zero that, yeah, there's a cover-up. But that's why we look at data. That's why we get curious.
And I think when anything big happens, when any influential member of society is taken out before their time, we want to look at it and go, well, there must be a greater reason for this, because I mean, especially if you believed in their way of thinking, you want to think, well, they didn't die just for nothing. They didn't die because some idiot 20-year-old had access to a high power rifle and learned how to shoot at a young age and has zero self-control. That can't be just the simple reason why he's gone. Right. He did all this work. He did all these things. If you like him, he's a good person. I mean, I'm just saying, from what people will say, depending on what your opinion is of Charlie Kirk, and no one should be killed for their opinion. The fact that it could have ended just so simply. And that goes for any assassination. It goes for Martin Luther King, whatever, whoever, anybody. That it could just be something so simple and so stupid that simplicity can take out something so big. And that's I think our brains aren't equipped to, I think, equate that equation there.
It doesn't. We want it to be bigger than it actually is, because that makes us feel that we're part of something bigger than that. I mean, and then to keep adding to that too, it's the confirmation bias, because Charlie Kirk meant a lot of things to a lot of different people, negative and positive. And so to say that, so if you're Christian, then you want to have this as a sign that both positive and negative, this is anti-Christianity. So I'm going to only see data and take in data says this was a conspiracy to take out Christian values. On the other side, he's a martyr to Christianity. So I'm going to see it on the opposite side, that the anti-Christians are taking him out. Then you can look at the political side, both positive and negative, same thing. And so if you're trying to prove your own point on your own self-opinion and how you see the universe through your own context, you're going to use moments like this to try to do those things. And so it's easy for us to identify patterns, which as a species, we're very, very good to identifying patterns that we want to create, because sometimes they're just not there. The universe is pretty random. And to your point, most of the time, and we've covered so many cases, 99% of the time, it is just a stupid person doing a stupid, horrendous thing to another human being. They're not smart. They're not intelligent. This is just another example of someone at 20 years old, before the prefrontal lobe's fully formed, self-radicalizing, doing something really stupid. Maybe with others. See, I'm throwing that maybe in there. Yeah. But this is what typically happens. It is not bigger than someone just doing something horrendously stupid.
Well, and isn't it? Oh, Tony, go ahead.
Like I said, we're in a place where it's so easy to essentially self-radicalize, and that's a term that sounds big and spooky, because I think we think of, like, if you've been around on the planet for a little bit and you've been around through 9/11 and such, you hear the term, you're like, oh, it's self-radicalization. There's that, and people think, oh, they were radicalized by this big group over here, and they're going to camps and training and doing that. Like, no, I mean, self-radicalization can just be somebody sitting there on their computer by themselves and reaffirming their own whatever direction of belief that they're going in. And then a lot of people doing that at the same time. I feel like we're in a place where our society confuses large numbers of people for legitimate opinions. Just because there's a large number of people behind something doesn't mean those people are operating in reality on reality's terms in any way, shape, or form.
The greatest example. So one of my favorite authors, Noah Harari, that wrote the book *Sapiens*, and they wrote the book *Nexus*. He wrote the book *Homo Deus* after the *Nexus*. And *Nexus* is talking about the evolution of information in our species. And to your point, just because a large amount of people believe it does not make it true. And that's his point in this book. The first greatest example of this was the printing press and witch hunts in Europe.
What about Sasquatch?
Yeah, well, they think, if you're looking at information. Yeah. Tony's got another series on that coming up.
Without question, it's real. Damn it.
But I think the numbers I saw was roughly 50 to 60,000 people in Europe became, burned at the stake because they were accused of being witches, because they started being able to mass produce information and distribute it, saying what a witch was, and they were using it for political assassination. You don't like your neighbors. And that was it was literally the first example in our species of mass scale information, just because a large people believed in witches because it was put out in all these pamphlets. They believed it to be true. And now they're killing 50 to 60,000 people because of garbage that everyone thought was true. So yes, we as a species are horrendous. Just because a large number of people say it's true does not make it true whatsoever. Good, but doesn't.
Yeah, social media is kind of like the printing press on steroids.
Yeah. So everything we experience today, we've experienced for hundreds of thousands of years. The technology behind it is what changes. But our cravings and needs as an organism here on this planet, they're exactly the same they've ever been. It's just how we propagate them is what's changed. My wife, so as much as I read, my wife reads even more now. And she generally, she's out with her friends now. She generally is sitting over on the couch, and she is her head buried in a book like all day long. Mm-hmm. And I told her, and I was laughing at her the other day, I said, people used to say, get your nose out of the book, you're going to ruin your eyes. Engage with the world, go out and get some grass, get some fresh air. When the book was invented, right? Now we're doing it with phones, we're doing everything else, but it's exactly the same thing. So she's got her face buried in a book, but since books are actually more historic and nostalgic for us, printing press, people are criticizing that. At the same time, when we started having, especially with Benjamin Franklin, invented the world's first libraries, free libraries in the United States, and they got the printing press going and all that in the United States. That was the technology at the time that, believe it or not, generations were railing against because it was keeping people buried like this. So it's Robin's way of saying, hey, everyone take a deep breath. It's just technology moving through, satisfying the same urges we have as a species that we've always had.
Well, I think we like to have knowledge. We like, we like to know why. A big question of why. My mom said that as soon as I could talk, like my first word was why? Why? I want to know why. I think there's a human curiosity. People need to know the reasons things are happening. And books, research, that all gives us that insight. But now we've got these little computers we can hold in our hands. The sources aren't always reliable. So the curiosity is there, but maybe the sources are questionable.
And that's what we need to really start doing more of, is interrogating the sources of our information. As soon as you hear something new, challenge yourselves with asking, first saying maybe, and then doing a deeper dive. What else can I find new? And, Stacey, to your beautiful point on that, Dr. Diane Hamilton, she wrote a great book called Cracking the Curiosity Code. And it talks about us as a species and our curiosity. Every other organism on this planet is born with a lot of innate traits and skills and things they're going to do to survive at a young age. And humans are the worst. But the skill set that we have to make us learn faster than any other animal on this planet is the fact that we're born with this insatiable curiosity, because we start being able to speak because we're relating things because of our curiosity. This is what this is. This is what word it represents. And now we're going to put that in our memory, and we're going to start remembering our curiosity. And you're always asking why. What's been happening generationally right now, which is, I think, a large reason why the supposed Charlie Kirk assassin, his curiosity died, because what happens is around the ages of 5 or 6, when our curiosity is really spiking, are asking why. Like, why is the sky blue? Why do we have stars? Why is the sun coming up at the day and goes down at night? Why does the moon glow one time and not another? What happens is parents and guardians that don't have patience and are bored will hand over an iPad rather than sit there, engage, and encourage that curiosity.
Yeah.
And if you start snuffing curiosity out at a young age, you're going to suppress it. When you start suppressing curiosity, then people are going to start just taking in what's presented without interrogating it. And interrogation, not like tell me to, making someone confess. I mean, interrogating mean deep dive to understand what made that what it is. What made you think why you are? And you can reinvigorate and respark curiosity at any point in your life. Mine's been resparked more in the last 5 years, I think, than it was in 20 years with the FBI, believe it or not. But yeah, that's what we have to do.
It's an interesting observation of what you just said there, especially when you talk about kids. And if you just look generationally at the world that was handed iPads at a certain age, or iPhones, or whatever it may be, their devices at 5 or 6, they're young adults now. And not all of them by any means. There's some very intuitive, wonderful ones who use that iPad and to further their curiosity quest and to get information. The other 90-some% now stare at you going,
huh? What?
Right.
They speak in grunts. And that's because mom put an iPad in their hand and probably stopped encouraging them to ask why, and they just got to sit there and go, boo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. I think that's probably the answer to that. I know it's not exactly the topic we're talking about, but it is. It's an interesting thing to see, and it may tie into this to a certain extent too. The simplicity of it, of just I saw an opportunity, so I thought I would take it.
Yeah, I had someone reach out to me after one of my appearances on Fox talking about the Charlie Kirk case, and this is someone from my past, and they said, well, are you sure? Because, I heard it's conspiracy for X, Y, and Z. And I said, maybe. And they said, well, I heard that from a very reputable friend of mine.
And?
Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. And here's what curiosity does. And so instead of allowing your phone and your iPad to be your teacher, we can teach it to be our tool. Because then I pick up my phone and I pick up my iPad, and every statement that someone says, I call it leakage, all the leakage of the data points someone's providing, I interrogate it. It's like, all right, you said this, let me explore this. You said this, let me explore this. What's this actually mean? Every time, I mean, just ask yourself, if I was going on a podcast to talk to Tony about true crime and you were talking about this topic, what would you do to explore every single nook and cranny so you can actually be educated on all that content? I mean, that's exactly what I do for this, exactly what we do and should be doing with everything we say in life, especially today. There's such a treasure trove of garbage that is circulating around the world. And I'll tell you what it is, it's entertaining. Because 99% of everything that you're consuming is meant to be entertainment. Because what's entertainment do? Sells ad space. Because remember, we're all just doing things for profit, most people. So interrogate everything.
See, it's a reality show. Life is a reality show right now.
Absolutely. And that's why I call it, this is a great show. This is a great show. But remember, sometimes it's important to realize you're watching a variety show of the life around you. And sometimes you just need a down-to-earth, nonfiction, true show about what actually is, so we can actually make good cognitive choices, of healthy choices for us and those we care about.
Well, and that people need to also understand they have agency to look, to dig, to ask the questions. It's not just because I say this, you say this. Okay, if you don't like it, you just then dig, then find why are you not agreeing? Why are you agreeing? Whatever it is. Question things. It's good to question things. When we're told not to question things, that's where it gets really dangerous.
That's
another place that we're in right now. It's interesting what you said there about your friend, where he was like, well, I got this on, somebody really I trust, some of this. He's trying to recruit you to their team. This is a team sport now.
Yes.
Conspiracy theories are a team sport. They wanted you on your team, on their team. And you're a great player to have on someone's team. So I get what they're doing. You're on our team. And I love that.
Isn't that great?
But that's the thing with conspiracy theories. you don't have to think just like somebody else or have their exact same opinion to be on the same team. Team, let's question, let's ask. That's a better team than let's all be right. Because if you're not open to being wrong, how are you ever going to evolve?
100%. And when we discover new things, that's so much fun. I mean, one of the greatest things I love doing with you all is when we're exploring these cases or exploring these things, it's literally that. It's an exploration. Every single case that we cover, it's an exploration. We always start out with maybe. And as we keep taking in more data on everything we're saying, I have switched my own personal opinions on what I thought is so many times on so many cases by every time I get new data coming in, because I don't, at least I do to the best of my ability, have that confirmation bias that it is definitely one thing. Although I will tell, as everyone knows, Richard Allen, I still think he's innocent. But other than that, But and why? Because of the data of him, of what comes in. If I see different data, it'll switch it again. Not being tied to the outcome that you're seeking really keeps you flexible and open to the life you're experiencing around you, and you will see so much more. I think I get asked, the most common question I get asked is, Robin, how do I profile the world around us? How do we become a great observer? How do I baseline everything? I said it's actually the easiest thing in the world to say, the hardest thing to do. I don't try to see anything. Mm-hmm. When you don't try to see something, you see so much more. Because as soon as you're trying to see someone do something, in other words, people always say, the common thing that you hear from law enforcement is after a crime has happened and the convict or the bad guy still on the loose, police will say, be vigilant. And what if you don't give instruction on what that means is, what do people try to do? They're going to try to see something wrong. Yes. They're going to try to see a bad guy. So now they're placing an imprint on their mind of what a bad guy looks like from what they've seen before on videos and pictures and everything. And they're going to try to find that person. They're going to miss everything else because you're trying to find that. And so instead, when someone says be vigilant, here's what you could be doing. Don't try to find anything. Take in everything, baseline what everything around you typically looks like on a normal day, which we already know. We already get a vibe of the tempo, the look, the placement of everything in our lives. And we always have that spider sense or that tremor in the force, as I call it, when something's a little off. When you feel something's a little off, that meant something changed. Someone changed. Because if you're not trying to see something, you'll be able to zero in on that a lot easier. And then you say, that's a little different from everything I've seen every day. Yeah. Rather than you'll ignore it, because now here's what will happen. If that doesn't fit what you're trying to see, like you see a box or something left over here, but you're trying to find something that looks like a bomb over here, you're going to totally ignore that box.
That's really profound what you're saying here. So instead of hyper focus on everything to try to find that little nugget, step back to the broader picture and look at the entire picture, or maybe don't even look. Things will pop at you. And so many people are so stressed out because we are hyper focused. We are absolutely focused on this and that and that and that and so many things, and our brains can't process that. We really need to sit back and kind of do the do a little meditation and just let our minds rest and see what comes.
I feel like we're defining outrage as community. And that's not the same thing. And here's I don't know why this example came to my mind when you were talking about that, but here's kind of a functional example. You ever go to like those festivals where it's like the taste of your city, where it's a bunch of different restaurants, like, a little bit of this from here, and then some places have like huge lines just to get one thing, and some like have nothing. But you're walking around, and you can walk into something like that and go, oh my gosh, this huge line over here, this must be amazing. I don't even know what the hell's they're serving, but everybody's in this line. I must go check this out. And you haven't even walked around to see what the hell's going on, what everything else is. It's not just jumping into, well, everybody's over here, this must be the best thing. It's walk around first. Go see what everything is. Go find out what foods are there. You may discover that everybody's lining up for you hate. So go check out what the rest of the atmosphere has before you just jump into the line where everyone else is, where all the scuttlebutt is, because you may discover it may not even be what you want or believe. But once you're in that line after the last hour waiting for your cream puff, You don't even like, and you can't even have dairy.
So I'm getting in the line for the cream puff. But oh my God, that was a great analogy, Tony. That was awesome.
So here's some pragmatic things you can exercise in your own life. Boy, we go on such tangents sometimes. I apologize.
It's beautiful. No, stop apologizing. It's wonderful. I love this part.
So here's something you can use in your own life. Talk about, because Tony, what you're also talking about there too is also social proof. Social proof is an amazing, powerful tool of influence and persuasion over others. Can be used for manipulation also. So these can be the dark arts, right? So this reminds. I'm laughing because this is so funny. My wife just laughs at me hysterically when I do things like this. So I think it was last year. As you know, I go camping a lot. Well, I go glamping in our motorhome. And we were staying down in the Great Smokies in Tennessee about a year or two ago. And they have the big circle that goes through Great Smoky Mountains. And it's through the National Forest there. It's typically... It's like one single lane, and the speed limit's like 20 or 25, but typically you get someone creeping at like 2 miles an hour. They'll just stop, and it's just driving you nuts, right? Especially if you're me. I want to keep a tempo going, right? So we're passing this one meadow, and we're at a pull-off, and no one's pulling off. And there's like 4 cars in front of me, and they're just kind of creeping along, and we had cars behind me. I said to my wife, watch this. And so we stopped the car. I rolled down the window, and I pointed my hand out the window, looking out across the field, and I held it for like this. Every car around me pulled off the side to see what I was pointing at, and we were able to go. Pointed at nothing, man.
I love it. I'm going to use that.
Oh, my God. Oh, that's so devious.
Yeah.
I love it.
I just wanted to get these people out of my way. So here's what you do. Ask yourself, what can I do? It's got to be an action of what can I do?
Fuck with other people.
No, to inspire someone to get out of my way.
I like the operative use of inspire.
So what are their priorities on this trip? Their priorities is to see something in nature. So if I point out something that they think might be in nature that is out of the ordinary, they're going to be inspired to move the hell out of my way.
You're an evil genius is what you are. Jennifer in our chat said genius, but I'm going to put evil genius.
You just got to know what people seek and crave.
They're inspired. Look at that dead chipmunk, everybody. Go check that out.
My wife still tells that story. It's just hilarious. I mean, you do that anywhere you go. Anyway.
Does she just roll her eyes at you, or what does she do when you do these things?
There are moments I rate my day. If my wife doesn't roll her eyes, she says, that was really good.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Brueski and the Hidden Killers podcast.